where I share about my experiences and as an ex-Muslim, learning about the Trinity, learning about the Lord Jesus Christ through the Bible and my experiences. And sometimes we get to broaden our perspective a little bit and talk about other subjects that are relevant. And today we have a very, very special guest who I've whose work I've admired for a long time, and who I've been wanting to have on my program when I had a TV program for many years. And so it's a New York Times best-selling author, Robert Spencer. Hello, Brother Robert. How are you today?
Just great. Thank you. It's good to see you.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's a great privilege to have you on today. And since I had you today, and I was just watching some of your videos yesterday, just to kind of learn a little bit about your own background, and I guess that you have a little bit of a Turkish, a little bit of a connection to Turkey, huh?
Yeah, not Turkish, but Turkey. My grandparents were Orthodox Christians in the Ottoman Empire, and they were exiled for declining to convert to Islam, and they moved to the United States, which is why I am here today.
Okay. Well, I wanted to talk a little. I just wanted to ask you. This is something that just happened, and it is about the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, which was converted into a mosque. And I just was curious, from your perspective, is there something else going on here besides just the fact that it went from being a museum to being a mosque now? Because it seems like, I don't know what to think. I don't know that much about it, to be honest, but it seems like it's caused a lot of stir on the internet.
Well, yeah, actually, we could talk about this for hours. There's so much to it, so many different angles. Fairly important. One of the most important things that's happened in the 21st century, longer than that, as a matter of fact. And just briefly, here's one angle to it, one aspect of this. In 1453, after the Hagia Sophia had been the most formidable, most renowned, most beautiful, most important cathedral in all of the Christian world for almost 1,000 years, the Muslims conquered Constantinople on May 29th, 1453, and they converted it to a mosque. As a mosque, it stood as a symbol of the triumph of Islam over Christianity and the superiority of Islam to Christianity. And that's how the Ottomans understood it. That's why they converted it to a mosque. And it was because of its importance in the Christian world that they were so happy to be able to convert it to a mosque. Then in 1934, the secular ruler of the modern Republic of Turkey decreed that it would be converted to a museum. Now, he also was being triumphalist. He was proclaiming, and using Hagia Sophia as a symbol, he was proclaiming the triumph of Turkish secularism over Islam. Because he said famously that Islam was the theology of an immoral Bedouin and was a dead thing. And he structured Turkish secularism on Western models of society and governance in explicit and thoroughgoing rejection of Sharia, Islamic law, as being the only legitimate way that a society should be ordered. And so Hagia Sophia was still a symbol, but now it was a symbol of the triumph of secularism over Islam. And that's what Hagia Sophia was as a museum. Meanwhile, of course, the Christians were happy. They would have been happier had it been a church again. But the remaining Christians of Turkey and Christians around the world, particularly Orthodox Christians, were happy that it was now possible to go in and see the incredible icons of Jesus and his mother and the saints in this cathedral, those that had survived, and that it was now what they considered to be a monument to pluralism. So Erdogan comes along, and Erdogan wants to restore Islamic law, wants to restore the Ottoman Caliphate. So he also uses Hagia Sophia as a symbol. And now having made it a mosque again, it is once again a symbol of triumph. The triumph, once again, of Islam, this time over Turkish secularism and over Christianity as well, in terms of his ongoing struggles with Christian Europe and the United States. And so Hagia Sophia has been, for virtually all of its life, in 1,500 years of existence, a symbol. But what it's a symbol of has been changing.
Wow. Dang. That changes things a little bit. But, it's just like I'm hearing so much about it. And to be honest, I mean, I'm Palestinian, and so I'm very, very aware of holy sites, and the importance of holy sites. And I'm almost tired of holy sites, And so, when I said, "Oh, another holy site situation," but man, when you look at it from that angle of now, I'm getting a little bit. It made me a little bit nervous. It made me a little bit nervous what you just said, because of the history of the Ottoman Empire with Christianity, specifically when we talk about the Armenian genocide. Mm-hmm. Now, does this portend anything? Is this?
Yes. It portends a great deal, my friend. It's as I said, it's extraordinarily significant, and we could talk about its significance for hours. One of the other things about it, in terms of what this portends, is that Erdogan has said specifically, he said it explicitly, he said it unapologetically, that all the lands that once belonged to the Ottoman Empire, the Turkish government still considers their own. And that is essentially a declaration of war against Greece, against Egypt, against Israel and Jordan and Syria, against Eastern Europe, against North Africa, because all of those lands were once part of the Ottoman Empire. But he wants not only to restore the caliphate, he wants to restore the caliphate's borders. And now he has that foremost symbol of the caliphate restored, the Hagia Sophia, as a mosque. Now, the next thing that's almost certain to come is actual military belligerence against some or all of those territories in order to try to restore the caliphate. We've actually already seen it starting with the Turkish military incursions into northern, and it's very clear that he's not just trying to clear out what he is claiming are people who are making war against Turkey, but he's trying to take over that territory for Turkey, and much more of that is to come, certainly.
Oh, okay. Dude, I shouldn't have had too much coffee this morning, because that does make me nervous now. Dude, I just wanted a little comment about that thing. I thought, because I didn't understand what it means, but man, that just changes everything, man. It's just like, so when it's about, because I mean, he's talked about Jerusalem. He said,
the Ottomans owned Jerusalem, therefore it belongs to him now. And so when he says that after Hagia Sophia comes the Al-Aqsa Mosque, he's talking about restoring it to Turkish control, which would mean war against Israel.
How about, do you think that there could be some kind of alliance with Turkey and Iran?
That's unlikely, because Iran is Shiite and Turkey is Sunni. It is, however, possible. We have to remember that the Sunni-Shiite divide, as bitter and violent as it has been and remains, is at the same time not as big as the divide between Muslims and non-Muslims, as far as Muslims are concerned. So that you have, for example, Shiite Iran financing Hamas, the Sunni jihad group that's fighting against Israel, because they consider the old saying goes in Arabic, my brother against my brother and both of us against our cousin. The Sunnis and Shia hate each other, but not as much as both of them hate infidels. So it's possible that you could see Turkey and Iran uniting, but I think it's more likely that they will continue to be rivals, trying to gain control of the entire Islamic world, which is something Iran, despite the fact that it is Shiite and that Shiites are a minority among Muslims, Iran has also been trying to gain control of the Islamic world.
Okay. Well, That gives me a nervous condition. But anyway, let's get out of the Middle East before I do have a. Let's get to the United States, even though that's going to make me feel even worse. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about what's going on in the United States, because specifically, just recently in the media with this coronavirus thing, one thing I've noticed is that there's been such a anti-Christian thing in the media. I mean, this thing of going after churches and every pastor who does I mean, it's like if the New York Times came out and said the coronavirus can be traced to evangelicals, can be blamed on evangelicals, and what's going on in the media, man? What's up with this? I mean, is there something going on besides just the usual hatred for Christianity?
Well, yeah, just like with Hagia Sophia, there's an awful lot to this, and we could go on for hours about it. Media, of course, we have to understand these aren't news organizations, and it's increasingly obvious that they're not news organizations. They are propaganda outlets for a far left Marxist, anti-Christian, anti-American agenda. And so they want to denigrate and destroy Christianity. They want to weaken Americans' attachment to Christianity. They want to make as many Americans turn away from Christianity as possible. Meanwhile, Islam is their favored religion because well, think about it this way. You know that Muhammad said, obey your ruler, even if he is an Ethiopian with a head like a raisin. That, of course, is the most famous saying. And he also, there are other hadiths where he says things like, obey your ruler, even if he's sinful, because if he's a Muslim. And there has always been authoritarian government in Islamic countries. And this is in part because of those statements by Muhammad. It's in part because of the cosmology of Islam. If anything, Allah is a dictator and a slave owner, and the people are his slaves, as the Quran says. And his word is law. You have to do what he says. And he may be arbitrary and capricious because he might create jinns and men for hell, even aside from anything that they've done, as the Quran says in chapter 32:13 and 7:179. And you just have to go along with it. He's the dictator in charge. And so human societies are modeled after that. And there have always been dictatorships in the Islamic countries everywhere that Islam has been in a majority, with the exception of the Republic of Turkey, which is now on its last legs as a free society and is returning to Islamic law. So Marxism wants an authoritarian government. Islam wants an authoritarian government. They are thus much more compatible than Christianity, which teaches the dignity of every human being, the equality of dignity of every human being before God, and consequently it paves the way for a free society in which every individual is respected, rather than a society in which everyone's just a slave and a servant of the rulers. And so Marxism and Islam get along great. And the press, being Marxist, they love Islam, but they want to destroy Christianity.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Wow. That is okay. I'm just going to go ahead and throw out these two words, and then you tell me, this is like current events, just because this stuff is right in our face right now. The defund the police movement.
Well, this is all part of the chaos that the Marxists want to sow so as to destroy American society. I mean, anybody with any common sense will realize that even if there are some bad policemen, and there certainly are, that we need police in general, that because of human nature, there will always be people committing violent crimes. And if the society is going to have any kind of peace, any way for people to live normal lives without being in a perpetual state of war, then you have to have police. So the best way to corrode and ultimately destroy the society and bring about its collapse is to attack the authorities that keep it together. And so we have the defund the police movement. It's all part of the same Marxist agenda. And you have the Islamic groups in the United States, like the Council on American Islamic Relations and the Islamic Society of North America and the rest of them. And they're all tied in with Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. And they're totally on board with the defund the police business because they want to see the elimination and destruction of Western civilization from within, as the captured Muslim Brotherhood document said, what were the Muslim Brotherhood's goals in the United States. So it all fits together very easily. The defund the police movement will create chaos in the United States, the breakdown of the civil order, the threatening of the ordinary population, civil war will break out in various places. Other places, innocent people will be victimized and killed. And that's just the sort of situation that's ripe for a Marxist revolution and the takeover of an authoritarian strongman who will clamp down and create a kind of order, but only at the expense of making the entire population slaves of the state.
Oh, okay.
And
All right. Dude, I'm laughing because I'm just like, my mind is being blown here, man. It's like, I used to be a reporter, so I worked in the media, so I'm aware, I'm aware of some of the in workings of media and stuff like that. Not that much, I'm not an expert, but there was one thing that happened the other day that kind of I found interesting, intriguing. It was Joe Biden was quoting some verses of the Hadith, and it was like it says, if you can't resist with your hand, then resist with your mouth, and if you can't resist with your mouth, resist with your heart. And what did you think about that? Did you have any opinion about that?
Oh, I got an opinion about everything. Joe Biden, of course, he doesn't know the Hadith from his left shoe. He got fed that by one of his handlers, and I think that what's interesting about that is that it seems to me that whoever it was that gave Biden this is having a joke on us, because that's a jihad passage. That's a passage calling for warfare against unbelievers, because in the Islamic context, Islamic law is justice. Sharia is justice, and jihad, warfare against unbelievers, is necessary to impose Sharia. And so if you see injustice, correct it with your hand. That means wage jihad against unbelievers in order to establish Sharia. And here's Biden saying, oh, isn't that great? Of course, Biden doesn't have a clue. He doesn't even know where he is or what year it is, but he certainly doesn't have any clue about what Muhammad is saying.
Wow.
But anybody who knows the Hadith and all the Muslims who were hearing him, I'm sure they were laughing up their sleeves and thinking, we're getting this guy to endorse jihad. We've got him totally wrapped around our little fingers.
I was thinking, because when I heard that, I was thinking, I wonder, I mean, the media's never going to say this, but that's kind of like a reverse dog whistle, that most people like, oh, that's so nice, just with your hand and then with your mouth and just express yourself, First Amendment, and then, fill your heart with hate. And, but that, your heart is free, so you can do whatever you want with it. But that was actually a dog whistle. There's people who understand what it means.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that there are people who will see this and think, oh, Spencer, he's some sort of conspiracy nut. It was just saying you should work for justice. But Americans do not realize that justice means something very different in an Islamic context from what Americans take it for granted as meaning. And this is a big problem. This goes back years. I remember George W. Bush saying that ordinary moms and dads in Iraq, they want what we want. They want justice. They want freedom. And I thought, well, maybe they do, but they do not understand it the way that George W. Bush does. And the proof of that was the fact that after Saddam Hussein was toppled, there were nothing but vying jihad groups wanting to impose Sharia. Only they fought each other because each one of them wanted to be the top dog when Sharia was imposed. Nobody was fighting to impose a pluralistic society. And this is because of the understanding of justice. When Muhammad speaks about justice, he means Sharia. And Muslims work with their hands to impose Sharia by waging warfare against unbelievers.
Yeah. And even the word peace, it means something else. It's not the hippie peace movement, It means something else when you're
Yeah,
saying,
it means Sharia is imposed. Everybody is submitting.
Yeah.
We often hear people say Islam means peace. Now, Islam, of course, doesn't mean peace. It means submission. But it is the same root in Arabic as the word for peace. Islam, salam, both with the SLM root. And it's a related word because the peace comes from submission to Allah and to Sharia, which means the subjugation of non-Muslims as inferiors under the hegemony of Sharia.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a very sensitive question right now, just because I'm an ex-Muslim. My family's still Muslim, and I love them. I worry about them. I'm so scared. The last thing it's such a sensitive, it's such a fine line that I have to walk. But that there's in the media, it's like we're not allowed to talk about Islam because you're going to be called an Islamophobe. But there are, you can talk about Jesus. You can talk about Christianity. You can criticize the bad things about Christianity. You can criticize, and they'll call us KKK. They'll call us all these things. But you cannot talk about Islam. And I know that, like in the Middle East, if you talk about Islam, you lose your life. I mean, it's so dangerous to do that. I mean, if you talk about Muhammad or something, you can lose your life over there. But here, you can lose your reputation. You can lose your name, and everything like that. And I'm sure it's something you don't understand, but I'm just kidding. But there's a distinction. They're wanting to lob it all together and call it. The minute you say anything about a terrorist group, that means you're speaking about all of Islam. You're talking about all Muslims, which you're not. There's a difference. And what is the difference there? Is there, because we can't see the line anymore. The media has erased the line. What can you tell us, where is that line?
Well, it's really a very simple and clear distinction that is easy to understand. But Islamic groups in the US wanting to bring aspects of Sharia to the US, wanting to make Americans submit to Sharia, they have been working to obscure the distinction for 2 decades, and they've been extraordinarily successful. And they've made people think, they've made people assume that if you talk about jihad doctrine in Islam, then you must hate Muslims. And therefore, you must not talk about jihad doctrine or about terrorism. But the distinction is this. There are human beings who are Muslims. Some of them are very fervent and devout. Some of them are not. As you well know, I'm sure from personal experience, some of them are very knowledgeable about the faith. Some of them are not. And there's so many variations among all that. People with different priorities, different perspectives, different goals, different outlook, and they will look at Islam differently. But if you have a friend or a loved one, a family member or a neighbor who is a Muslim and is a sweet, gentle guy who would never hurt anyone, never cause anybody any trouble, this does not change the nature of Islam any more than here. I'll give you a very easy analogy. The Bible says, "Love your enemies," and if somebody strikes you on the right cheek, offer him the other also. Lots of Christians, me included, have a whole lot of trouble doing that and have failed at it many times. Does that mean
just the only place where I have trouble following that is the 405 freeway, but anyway.
I've been on that. Does that mean that the Bible does not say love your enemies and turn the other cheek? No, it certainly does say it, but it just means that I am imperfect in living it out. Now, it's the same thing in Islam. Islam teaches warfare against unbelievers. Muhammad is the apostle of Allah. Those who follow him are ruthless to unbelievers, merciful among themselves. That's chapter 48, verse 29 of the Quran. There's so many other verses I could quote. So if you have a Muslim who is not ruthless to the unbelievers and not merciful to the Muslims, does that mean the Quran no longer says that? Of course not. It just means he's not a good Muslim. Paradoxically, he might be a good human being, by not being a good Muslim, because Islam teaches Muslims to be bad human beings in so many ways.
Yeah. You know, one thing that, because I'm an ex-Muslim, I used to be a Muslim, and I'm sure you know this, that, you know, there's a death sentence on me. You know, the Muhammad said, "He who changes his religion, kill him." You know, so there's a death sentence on me, and then the Quran says, "If they forsake you, pursue them and kill them wherever you find them." So, you know, either way, it's like I'm dead. You know, according to the Quran, according to the Hadith, according to Muhammad's own example. You know, but I say that sometimes to Muslims. Muhammad said it's a very clear passage. I mean, it's not like you need to have a great, you know, doctorate in Islamic history and the Qurayshi dialect or anything. It's clear. And he says, if they change their religion, kill them. Muhammad was very clear about that, you know. But I tell that to them. They said, no, that's not Islam, you know. And it's like, I said, it's because you still have a conscience. You see, this hasn't gotten, you know, thank God you still have a conscience and you don't obey that. But they always tell me, well, you're still alive, you know, but I'm alive just because somebody hasn't obeyed that, you know, that command yet. But the problem is the command is there. And Muhammad said it. And so I'm in danger because of that, you know. And so, I'm just in line with what you're saying there, you know.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I kind of wanted to ask you about is, these are hard things to ask about because I love America. I was born in America. I owe America so much. I care about America just because I was born and because I was raised here, because I know how Americans feel and stuff. You know, I think more like an American than an Arab, you know, just because I was born here. And so it hurts to talk about some of these things for me because I'm worried about America. But like, you know, the Constitution Sharia thing, you know, is this thing still, is this a thing?
Yeah, it's a big thing. Look, here again, we have the distinction between Muslims and Islam. People ask me all the time about this, and they say, can a Muslim be a loyal American citizen? Now, a lot of people would tell you no, but I say, of course. But a Muslim can only be a loyal American citizen if he does not implement and does not intend to implement various important aspects of Sharia, in which case he's not all that great a Muslim. For a devout and knowledgeable, dedicated Muslim to be an American citizen, I don't know how he could do that without dissembling. And maybe that's what he's doing. But the fact is that Sharia denies the freedom of speech, denies the freedom of conscience, denies equality of rights of women, calls for anti-Semitism, calls for the execution of homosexuals, calls for all kinds of other things, beating of disobedient women, that are incompatible with American society and laws and with the US Constitution. Consequently, it's either going to come down to Sharia or the Constitution. Even though we're completely, as a society, ignoring this problem right now, at some point we're going to have to deal with it. You're not going to be able to postpone it forever. And then the United States is going to have to choose, as a country, whether it's going to defend the Constitution, defend those freedoms, the freedom of speech, the freedom of conscience, the equality of rights of all people before the law, or submit to Sharia and deny all those freedoms.
Okay, well, yeah. So, yeah, that's one of those things. You know, it's like, you know, you just think about things. You know, like Linda Sarsour. You know, that blew my mind. That blew my mind when I saw Linda Sarsour leading the women's meeting, the women's marches.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, wait a minute. You know, I know the Quran 434. I know what it says, and has she ever disavowed that verse?
No.
Has she ever, you know, disavowed, you know, that women are tilth? You know,
She's never disavowed any aspect of the Quran's teaching on women or anything else. And as a matter of fact, in some tweets several years ago, to be sure, I think she knows better now, but I don't think she's changed her views. But in some tweets a few years ago, she was openly defending Sharia and saying it really all made sense once you understood it properly. And so she was essentially endorsing the Sharia treatment of women, as she also does by wearing the hijab.
Okay. Um, and then there was on CNN where the Alison Camerata, she was wearing the hijab one day for World Hijab Day or something like that. Did you see that?
No, but I'm not surprised at all, knowing Alison Camerata.
You know, the one thing I like to say, when I talk to those women, is a lot of times they say, well, it's freedom. To wear it is freedom. And I say, yeah, to wear it is freedom. But how about to take it off?
That's
Are you free to take it off?
Yeah.
What happens once you take it off? That's where you determine if it's freedom or not,
Yeah, you're quite right. I have a long list at Jihad Watch that I publish every now and again, and I keep it updated as much as I can of incidents where women have been threatened and killed or even killed for not wearing hijab. And where's the march for them? Where's the non-hijab day? Where are the feminists defending them?
Yeah.
It really shows up the entire feminist movement as compromised and hypocritical, and demonstrates that what they're really about is not defending women. What they're really about is trying to destroy America. And so they are happy to ally with Sharia groups and hijab wearers like Linda Sarsour because they have that common goal of hating America and wanting to destroy it. And the women's rights are really just a pretext.
Okay. Well, that leads to a lot of other subjects, that we've talked about quite a bit about women's rights in Islam and stuff like that. And are there any Sharia courts in the United States?
There was one that was established in Texas a few years ago, but I'm not sure it's still operating. Haven't heard a thing about it in quite some time. There probably are, but they are under the radar. There's an awful lot of under the radar activity in the Islamic community in the United States. For example, I was once speaking in a city in the Northeast, and the local counter-terror police commissioner, counter-terror police chief, whatever you call it, the policeman in charge of counter-terror was meeting with me to talk about security before the event. And he said, look, if you have time, I'll show you the secret mosque. And I thought, well, how secret is it if the police know about it? And I asked him that, and he said, yeah, we know about it, but we let it happen because we want to observe what's going on there. But it's not registered, it's not legally operating, and there are many others in this area like that. Officially, there's one mosque in this city, but unofficially, there are several others. And if there are mosques, then it's also likely that there are unofficial Sharia courts. Of course, in Britain, the Sharia courts have official status, and they were established about 12, 13 years ago amid all kinds of assurances that they would obey British law, that if there were any cases that came before them that had to do with British criminal law, then they would refer them to British criminal courts. Those would notably be cases of spousal abuse, which is against the law, of course, in British law, but not in Sharia. And they were not referred. There were many cases of spousal abuse that have been documented in the British courts to have been kept in the Sharia courts. And the Sharia court tells the women, go back and try to please your husband more instead of getting her justice. And so this is the hazard of Sharia courts. And I think however many there are in America now, there will be many, many more in 5 years and 10 and 15.
Okay. Yeah, that's I always think about England. I think about, it's like, you just, if the church arises and begins to preach the gospel and do what it's supposed to do, God has brought the mission field. But You know what? If they don't do what they're supposed to do, if they don't preach the gospel, if they don't show the love of Jesus, if they don't, you know, it's like I look at England and I just it makes me shudder to think what's going to happen here when I see how the media is the wind at the backs of a lot of things. I mean, when Joe Biden comes out and starts, encouraging Sharia law, jihad, even though he maybe didn't know he was doing that, of course, like he doesn't know where he is a lot of times, poor guy. But, I mean, the way dude, I'm just like the everything. I mean, the believe women, the Me Too thing, where you have to believe all women. But Tara Reid came out, and the big thing that in the internet was that, and when President Trump said that thing about, it was disgusting, thing when he was with the bus with the Access Hollywood, it was a horrible, horrible thing, and I don't need to say it, what he said about women, it was disgusting, and I hated it. In fact, I almost turned against him after that because it was such a disgusting thing he said. But you know what? Trump talked about it. Joe Biden did it. Joe Biden actually did it to Tara Reid, but the media is letting him off the hook. Sure. Well, we don't believe all women,
Yes.
And
so really hold to the principles that they claim to hold, and they only really want to apply those principles to their opponents when they can use them to score political points. But they don't really care about women's rights. They don't really care about sexual assault. They only care about gaining power for themselves. And that's why they're behind Biden, and that's why they excuse Biden's behavior.
Yeah. Wow. Do you have any feeling about, with this coronavirus thing, just has this been used? And I'll just make this the last question just because we can go on forever. I'm an ex-reporter. I love this kind of stuff. But has this coronavirus thing been used how do you think it's been used?
I'm sorry, you cut out there a bit. I didn't get the second part. I heard has this been used, but I didn't hear after that.
Yeah. I just said that, because I'm an ex-reporter, I'm so into all this politics and stuff like that. So we could talk for hours about this, but just the way the coronavirus has been used in terms of and compare it to our rights. I mean, in 1 week, I couldn't believe everything they were able to do to the whole world in 1 week with this coronavirus thing. And I'm just wondering, is there something else going on here?
There's a whole lot going on here, just like with the other things. It's very disturbing. What we really have, well, think about it. At first, we were hearing that there were going to be millions of deaths, millions. And even Trump at the beginning was saying that there were going to be a few weeks where probably 200,000 people were going to die. And then it all started to get revised down and revised down again. And now we're hearing about all kinds of positive tests that turn out not to have been positive tests. And even more, you notice that the media has stopped talking about deaths because a lot of people are getting this and not dying from it.
Yeah.
And most of the people who die from it are very old or they have pre-existing conditions. And instead of talking about deaths, now they're talking about cases so that they can still say that it's all skyrocketing. And so the whole idea here, it seems to me, not saying that the virus isn't real, but that it is being used as a means of social control and as an attempt to gain control over populations, to make us malleable and susceptible to their commands, to separate us from our ordinary means of support. In the first place, the church. It's ridiculous that the church, so many churches are still closed. My own church is still closed, but people can go out and protest, and thousands of people can throng the streets as long as they're saying defund the police. But if they're saying Jesus is Lord, they can't be there. And
endangering people then. So
yeah. And so it's very clear what's going on also. And I'm not trying to lump together the church and baseball. It's two vastly different areas, two different worlds. But they also, of course, cut off all the things that people would do to have normal social interaction and means of relaxation, and then of course means of spiritual support in the churches. And so you have a population that is scared, that is tense, that doesn't have any outlet, and is thus easily led, easily controlled. And that's what this is all about.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that. I saw that the first week. I saw that the first week. I saw, dude. I mean, the whole world. They got the whole world to shut down in 1 week. It was unbelievable, and it was like, I thought, dude, there's something. It seems like there's something going on besides all this. There's something else going on here, and then the same thing with the Hagia Sophia. It's like there's something else going on here, and there's a lot of stuff going on in the back that I don't know. I know that Jesus is Lord. I know the Bible says that He's coming back, and that's my hope, my trust. My main purpose is to preach the gospel to specifically my people, my relatives, my beautiful, brothers and sisters, and I love the Muslims, and but I don't love Islam. In fact, the other day I was going to ask you about it. Somebody asked me, they go, "How come you hate Islam so much?" And and I told them because it was a stupid answer, but I just said because I want Muslims to go to heaven, and Jesus said there's only one way to go to heaven, and that's through the blood of Jesus, and Islam cuts you off from the salvation that Jesus came to give. I know that's not necessarily your area, but that's kind of.
I'm a Christian too. It seems to me that one of the worst things about Islam is that it's the embodiment of the passage in Isaiah about woe to those who call good evil and evil good. If anything does that, it's Islam. And the passage that the Lord says, there will come a time when men will kill you and think they're offering service to God. And the worst part about Islam is that it takes good, decent people who want to serve God and teaches them that to do that, to serve God, they have to do evil things.
Yeah. Or allow or permit Muhammad to do those things, like marrying the 6-year-old girl, and you can't condemn it because the prophet did it. And so anyway, Mr. Spencer, it's been just it's been wonderful to have you today, and it's been a long time that I've been wanting to have you on my interview on my TV show when I had it, and I just know that it's very difficult to schedule. But thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for there was one guy who asked you a question at one of your interviews I was looking at, and it's like, what keeps you doing this? Because I know you've been banned in places and stuff like that. Maybe I could just ask you that as a closing question. What keeps you doing this?
It's true, and it's right, and it's necessary. I mean, I told you at the beginning that my grandparents were exiled from the Ottoman Empire. My great-grandfather was actually murdered by a Turkish soldier as they were leaving. And this is all about jihad. If it weren't for jihad, I wouldn't exist. But that, I think, incurs in me a certain obligation that I owe it to my family, I owe it to my own people, that I try to keep this evil from spreading further. And it's made tremendous inroads in the United States, or I wouldn't be the pariah that I am. They've hoodwinked and fooled people into thinking that resisting jihad is hatred and so on. But that can't stop me, because what I'm doing is working for genuine justice and the triumph of the truth that ennobles every human being instead of enslaves, the falsehood that enslaves every human being.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to end this. I'm also a wannabe rock star. I think I'm a rock star. Most people don't agree with me, but I'm going to end this with a song that I wrote. It's called Shepherd of Love. It's about Jesus. And it's been thank you so much for coming on today. And I hope that maybe in the future, sometime we can have you again when there's a subject that I need to have a clear answer about. And I know most people just don't give clear answers anymore. You don't get clear answers anymore. You know, people are afraid to talk. People are afraid to talk, you know, and it's like what we got our speech police, you know, conscience police, you know, CNN and everybody. And anyway, I'm going on and on. Thank you so much for being with me, and I sure appreciate your appreciate what you do, and I appreciate your honesty and your heart.
Thank you very much, and God bless.
God bless you too. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for being with us today. And I'm just going to end this with one of my video clips. Please make it famous, make me rich and famous, so I don't have to deliver pizzas to pay for my bills. But anyway, God bless you. Jesus Christ loves you. I love you. And anyway, this is a song I wrote. It's called Shepherd of Love.
Now I can see how you were there watching over me, shepherd of the sheep you guided, gave your life for me. It's getting so much clearer now, though it was there all the time, that to save a single lost sheep, you would leave the 99, shepherd of love. Shepherd of how the pieces come together in your mighty hand. Looking back, I see your footprints in the sand. It's getting so much clearer now, though it was there all the time, that to save a single lost sheep, you would leave the 99, shepherd of love.